Hey everyone, you're very welcome to this evening's event. We'll be speaking with Ali Myas, who is a researcher for Mwatana for Human Rights. Mwatana is an independent Yemeni NGO whose main aim is to ensure access to basic human rights for everyone in Yemen. They've received numerous humanitarian awards in recent years, and they've provided information on the conflict to the UN and to the international community. So right now, Ali's going to talk to us about the current human rights situation in Yemen, and at the end of the talk, you can ask him any questions you might have on the topic. So go ahead, Ali.
Hey, thank you so much for all of you and for those who organize this online events. My name is Ali Myas. I'm a researcher on Mwatana team. Mwatana is a Yemeni NGO working on the main part of Mwatana work is to document and reporting human rights violation during this bloody war in Yemen. And all Mwatana's work aimed to advocate for victims who been suffered from the crimes and violation carried out by all parties to the conflict during this tragedy war. Also, we are seeking for accountable opportunities and redress for all these victims who have been killed and wounded because this crime and abuses of the IHL and the last war. So Mwatana has a large number of field researchers in 21 governorates out of 22 of Yemeni governorates. So we cover all the mainland of Yemen. So we are able to access to every remote district in Yemen in order to document the abuses and crimes committed by all parties to the conflict. So we conduct interviews with eyewitnesses, with survivors, with victims, with also medical workers and relief workers in order to investigate the cases and abuses carried out in this conflict. And also in the documented file, we have the physical evidence like remnants of weapons, we have photos and videos. This is all about Mwatana work. Let me just speak a little bit about Yemen. Yemen is one of the poorest countries in the world. This is before the start of the conflict. And it is the poorest country in the Middle East with lowest development indicators. And there is extreme poverty in Yemen among most of its population. And this is the sad story of Yemen before of the conflict. The conflict in Yemen has been started in 2014 with the Houthis and Ansarullah coming from north to south the capital Yemen, Sana'a. And they got support also from the armed forces loyal to the former president Ali Abdullah Saleh. And they take over Sana'a by force, and they put the Yemeni president Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi under the arrest in his home, and the other members of his government. And then after a few months later, Hadi could escape to Aden. It's a South Yemeni city. It's a seaport, Aden. And he announced Aden from there as a temporary capital of Yemen, and he started to practice his power from Aden. And Houthis unfortunately follow the President Hadi to Aden, and they also take control of Aden. At that moment, the Saudi Emirati-led coalition start a military aid campaign, and they start to pump the critical infrastructure in Yemen. And he claimed that he during this military campaign targeted or subjected the military target of Houthis, but unfortunately, the war became a tragedy for millions of Yemenis who has been killed and wounded because these abuses and crimes committed by parties to the conflict. If we look deeply in the war map, we will find that we have the Saudi Emirati-led coalition, and we have the forces of the internationally recognized government under the authority of Hadi, and we have the proxy forces of the backed by the United Arab Emirates and the west coast of Yemen. These arms groups call them the Joint Forces. They are in the west coast of Yemen, in the Red Sea. And we have the STC, the Southern Transitional Council in the south of Yemen, in the southern governorates, in Aden and Lahj and Abiyan. And these also armed group backed by the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. And they got their financial supports and they got their orders, and they are under the command of Emiratis. All these collective armed groups in one side, and we have in the other side the Houthis. So all these parties to the conflict, they fight with each other. So both sides have been continuing committing crimes, some of which may amount to war crimes. And we are Mwatana here in the ground to document all these incidents which violate the international humanitarian law and the laws of war, and also the international human rights law. If we just look into the crimes and violations carried out by parties to the conflict since 2014 to until now, we have a long list of crimes and abuses and violations carried out by parties of all warring parties. We have the air strikes, which devastated and destroyed the critical infrastructure in Yemen, including health facilities, schools, bridges, roads, and markets, boating, fishing posts, and many of the civilians' objects. And we have also the indiscriminate ground killing, which committed by all parties to the conflict in the ground, like Houthis and armed forces loyal to the Yemeni government. Which subjected residential area and left many civilian casualties. We have documented many cases, raise concerns that all parties to the conflict using starvation as a method of war. And we document also the landmines laying by Houthis and many different in Yemen, and it left many of casualties among children and women. And we have the child recruitment, and I think one of the prominent feature of the conflict in Yemen is the spread of the child recruitment among the armed groups in the ground. We also have the enforced disappearance and arbitrary detention and tortured. And we document in every Yemeni governments. So all parties to the conflict in the ground used to detain opponents, human rights defenders, and human rights activists and journalists. And we document hundreds of incidents. And by the way, also Emiratis, they running a secret detention center in the south of Yemen, in some of the southern governorates. And Mwatana has documented cases of tortured by Emiratis to the opponents in the southern governorates. So all parties to the conflict show no respect for the lives of Yemenis, and they don't show any respect for the international humanitarian law and the laws of war, and they have been committed various type of crimes and violation, some of which may amount to war crimes. So Mwatana on the ground working to document these incidents and violations. When it comes to the bad impact on the humanitarian situation, I can say that the ongoing conflict has led the country to the severe economic collapse, and it was the reason behind the cutting of the salaries for the civil servants for more than 4 years, and this is one of the reasons behind the famine. And also, it is a cause of the lack of the basic service, including the health services. So many of Yemeni people can die because they cannot access to the hospitals and health centers, and also they don't have a source of money to have medical treatment for their children and relatives. And we have the displaced people. We have over 3 million of Yemeni people are displaced. They flee from the heavy fighting and the hostilities and the clashes and witnesses. Some areas that witnesses this heavy fighting. And when it comes to the 6 year of the war. 6 years of the war have pushed the country to brink of famine. And as the United Nations stated, that the humanitarian crisis in Yemen remains the worst crisis in the world for the last decades. And as a record of UN agencies and bodies, 24 million of Yemeni people needs a sort of humanitarian assistance. Among this huge number, we have 14 million of Yemeni people. They need urgent humanitarian assistance to save their lives. And you can imagine how difficult life the Yemenis live. And we believe that this huge number the international relief agencies are not able to meet the need of this large number. So we need the stand of all the humanitarian groups around the world to stand by Yemenis and to just push towards putting an end for this tragedy war. The murder of Khashoggi had great impact on the peace process in Yemen. More than the 10,000 who have been killed and wounded and died because of the bloody war. And this also brings a hope for Yemenis. Why? Because we believe that when the international community have a serious and real pressure and parties to the conflict, it can send them to sit on the table and start peace talking. I mean, in the murder of Khashoggi, the international community can send all parties to the conflict to Sweden, and they negotiate the outstanding issues, and in order, to reach a political settlement, and they succeeded in this. They reached Stockholm Agreement, which really, and there was a ceasefire in Al-Hudaydah seaport, the main part of Yemen. And there was, they reached to agreement about also the humanitarian file. So if there is real pressure on parties to the conflict, it may be a successful way to bring these parties to the conflict again to the negotiation to stop this long suffering of Yemeni people. And also, I would like to say that we have a huge legacy of impunity here in Yemen. So our work also aimed to bring this perpetrator to justice, and also to all these perpetrators should be held accountable. Just in order to stop this violation and crimes to Yemenis. So we have hope, and we need all the world to pay attention to the war in Yemen, because it is a non-war. So I invite you again to visit Mwatana website, and we have a lot of products that Mwatana produce during its work of the documentation, the abuses, and the bloody conflict in Yemen. This is all, and I'll be glad to receive your question if you have.